The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence.
As prosecutors in Utah describing some of the text messages Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin sent to his roommate. These are text messages that an ABC News reporter described like this.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
Touching, not the word that comes to mind as an assassin admitted to his assassination, but the backlash Matt Gutman received prompted him to apologize, posting in part that he, quote, tried to underscore the jarring contrast between Kirk's death and the text between the suspected assassin and his roommate, and that he deeply regrets his words that he did not make clearer for his audience. The apology coming after Gutman's comments sparked outrage that Jesse Waters summed up like this.
ABC's touched by text messages between an assassin and his trans roommate. Disney is tickled by the intimacy of a killer telling his trans roommate how to orchestrate a cover-up. This isn't a love story. This is a cold-blooded murderer obstructing justice.
Now, as we continue to learn what may have motivated Tyler Robinson to allegedly carry out that deadly attack on Charlie Kirk, the prosecutors, of course, outlined exactly what they thought that was. A bipartisan group of senators from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman and Dave McCormick, spoke with Bret Baier last night, calling on the American people to tone down the violent rhetoric.
There's just no place in this country for political violence. It's absolutely something. It runs counter to the very idea of free speech and freedom.
Any kinds of extreme rhetoric, left or right, is really dangerous. And now it's just Luigi had his latest thing. This coward executed a father and a businessman just because you happen to disagree with his business. It's just unacceptable, and we have to just absolutely turn the heat down.
Harris, as the world heard those text messages yesterday, they probably got a chill, much like I did, thinking about someone, a suspected assassin, describing in detail what he had done. But an ABC reporter's first gut reaction is to call them touching.
Look, I don't know Matt Gutman, so I can't say what he was thinking, what he wasn't thinking. I thought the apology was an interesting one because I don't think it cleared up the core issue there. Why did you even think to talk about the love from a killer? Why does it matter? He killed. I think the point is just to cover the case. And what I'm looking for in this case is you've got a roommate in Lance Twiggs, because we know his name now. You've got a transitioning roommate who was having a conversation about his lover after he killed a guy. Like, I think that's what we should be looking at. So I can't speak for that reporter, but I can tell you that he apparently thought there might be a home for those comments. I think he's finding out that maybe that home ends at the threshold of his door.
Well, I heard this and I couldn't believe it. I want you to listen to Montel Williams describe Tyler Robinson as a love-torn child, just a kid. Watch.
What we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Defending a significant other, except I want you to listen very closely to what the county attorney said and what the CNN legal analyst said on the very network Montel Williams made those comments. Listen.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate.
Emily, on the back end, we were supposed to have the CNN legal analyst there who went on to vouch for the county attorney and said that's not a partisan actor. That's someone, when he talks about a motive, he is talking from a place of fact, knowing he has a trial in front of him.
And especially cognizant that every word out of his mouth in this public setting can also be used against him by defense. So yes, treading carefully to make sure he's absolutely glued to only what we know. I think the ABC comments and the CNN comments that you played earlier are absolutely, it is a new horrifying low. The only thing that I agree with is, yes, the alleged murderer is stunted, indeed. But to make this about the periphery, to make this about... What immediately came to my mind when I was seeing that and reading that is how a lot of domestic violence victims, the last text they receive from their husband or their partner or their love is something like, you know, if you won't live with me, you won't live with anyone, like that kind of thing. I will love you till the day I die. And then they end up getting murdered. That is sick. And it is sick and twisted to somehow bring that into the callous, cold-blooded, premeditated murder of Charlie Kirk that has nothing to do with his personal or her personal relationships on the side. Shame on those networks. And by the way, that sort of like tepid apology did nothing.
Yeah.
That was a word salad and did nothing to obfuscate the real meaning of his words that were actually quite clear, buddy, quite clear what you meant the first time you said it.
Yeah, so you have the partisan commentators and I guess the partisan reporter making these comments. Cheryl, Caitlin Collins presents herself as a White House correspondent who only goes by the facts, but I don't know if she was sleeping during the press conference yesterday. She didn't seem to find these facts.
We don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know
we don't have a motive yet.
What's
really?
happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration.
Maybe someone could send this to Caitlin, but Cheryl, I just want to put on the screen. We don't have a motive. This is the roommate. Why did you do this? Why did I do it, Robinson? Yeah. And he says quite clearly, I had enough of his hatred, referring to Charlie. Some hatred cannot be negotiated with. That is a motive written in a text message.
So don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, apparently, if you're Caitlin Collins. That's really troubling. That not just that, but the apologist that we're starting to see, not just with Luigi Mangione, which we saw in New York yesterday, the craziness down there, but then obviously somebody like a Montel Williams. And the Gutman thing, I was floored by that. I don't know either, to your point, but I was floored when he said that. I said, you were actually trying to empathize and get sympathy for a cold-blooded killer who, yes, in those text messages said exactly why he did it. His parents have come out and said that he had become more radicalized, he had gone more left. Like, this is all in the evidence that's being presented by the prosecutors and officials in Utah. It's really shocking to me what has happened in our country. I'm really trying to wrap my head around still where we're at right now.
Tom, in the media, you know, they always love to lecture. It's a favorite line of theirs. We have to have a common set of facts. We can't live in conspiracy land. It seems that they're denying a common set of facts. You referred to not just the text messages, but the mom saying he had a leftist ideology. It developed within the last year. We have facts as laid out in an indictment.
Yeah, and I think here's what I'm going to say about all these people. You know, Montel, he had his own thing. You know, we have people trying to change the narrative. They don't want it to be political, so they're going to reach for anything. As to the on-scene reporter, I want to try to offer a little grace because I sit in a warm studio and we have these on-scene reporters that report in to me all the time when I'm hosting a show. And they have such a hard job. And I always think to myself, I'm glad I'm not out there during a murder scene or a hurricane, and I would say the wrong thing. The way that they always have to report back and sometimes put a fresh perspective on it. This guy said something totally stupid. He apologized, and I will say this. I feel like he is marinating in political correctness like so many people in our society. Do you remember the old Seinfeld thing? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I see reporters doing this when there's a protected group, whether it's a racial group or a sexual group, and they want to say, well, the assailant was gay. That's the good part, but he was a murderer. That's the bad part. They try to add this thing, and I feel like that's what people do. They're reaching for this thing, and it causes people to say absurd things.
That was brilliant. Marinating in political correctness.
How about we marinate in the facts?
Yeah.
That's a good rule of
There are
thumb
a lot
for a
of 'em.
reporter, a good rule of thumb for Caitlin Collins and the like.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.